Welcome back to Switched to Linux. So this is Tom. I'm still working on the office lighting here. I kind of like the lighting. I'm a little concerned about the shadow back behind me, but I'll work on that a little bit. I wanted to go ahead and get this out. Next you can see I have my nice new shirt here. Nice Switched to Linux there. Got my little logo. Had this done by a local company here in town called Remarkables. And I got that, and actually I got some for my other business as well. Two completely different style shirts. So these ones are, I went with this one here, which is kind of like a patch. It's a full color, which was kind of important for that logo. It's a little more complicated. This logo here, I was thinking about doing a black shirt initially, but you know, with the penguin in there, the gray shirt just ended up being a little bit better. So this is the shirt that I'll be wearing in the videos for the near future, whatever. So today we're going to be talking about cookies. That's right, cookies. So I went ahead and made a whole bunch of cookies. These are fabulous sugar cookies. Let me know if you want the recipe or not. Got a Safari here. Did I ever show the Opera one? So I had a request about cookies, and this came from somebody who viewed the Facebook video on the Facebook Wants to Know Everything, and one of the things I had mentioned in there is looking at cookies, and so he called me up and said, hey, how do we manage all the cookies on these things? And so I wanted to write this whole article about it. So definitely the article here has a lot of fascinating information. I'm also going to put a lot of information in here to talk about the just where you can get some other resources and whatever else. And what we're going to do is first I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about cookies, and then I'm actually going to kind of split into multiple different screens here. I'm going to run OBS on a few different systems, and hopefully we'll get sound working well. I'm going to go into the Mac to show you the Safari, the Windows computer to show you Internet Explorer and Edge, and I will do Firefox, Chrome/Chromium, and Opera here on this Linux Mint computer. Hopefully everything works out well. I know the sound on the Windows computer is just horrible for some reason. I'll work with that. And I think the Mac sounds pretty good too, so we'll just go ahead and do that. The other thing is the microphone over top of the shirt, since I'm not wearing black, is kind of getting in my way. It's still among my list of things to do is to get a much better microphone. This is actually, it sounds pretty good, and people have told me it sounds pretty good. It could be better, but this is actually a $10 pair of Skull Candy headphones. So it's actually really good for that, for $10 headphones, but I definitely want to get something really better as soon as I can. So looking at cookies, what are cookies other than calorie-filled, tasty, amazing things here? And these are, just an FYI, I actually paid for college by being a baker, so I'm actually really good at this kind of stuff. I wasn't quite sure I could do the logos quite as well. There's the Firefox. I actually even put some lighter coloration over here by the tail, so you can kind of see that. And the Safari, the white bled a little bit, but I took a toothpick here to get the little gear heads in there, but pretty cool. And then of course the Edge, there's your Edge, and Opera was just kind of a little lame, but in fact I was thinking maybe, didn't think of it, but on the Linux Mint computer here, the Opera logo's all red with a white O. I thought that might be cooler, but I didn't see it until after I baked the cookies. So if you do want that cookie recipe, let me know if enough people want it, or maybe if a few people want it, I'll put it in there. I was thinking of doing that, but it took me like 4 hours to write the article and do all the research. So what we're going to do is first we're going to talk a little bit about cookies. So cookies, of course, are tracking data. They are used so that we can store information back and forth. Now, when you say tracking data, it's not all bad and horrible. None of my devices have I turned cookies off entirely. And I'm not completely sure I'd recommend it, because really to submit a web form or to really use the web as the web is intended to be used utilizes a degree of cookies. And so we need to keep some cookies on. But the one cookie I generally will recommend to completely disable wherever you can, is third-party cookies, because that's really the majority of your third-party cookies are going to be your trackers and things that I'm kind of against. So first, there's a couple different types of cookies. First, we have session cookies and we have persistent cookies. So the difference is a session cookie is a cookie that is on while you're browsing the website. It's never written to the disk. It's just in memory, and this allows you to stay logged into a page. It allows you to go from page to page, remembering a setting. It allows you to send send variables through a contact form. Those use session data. You can put items in a shopping cart as a guest without storing any data. That's all session data. Now, the persistent cookies store things. So one example of a persistent cookie would be, do you stay logged into a website? Or do you have to answer your security questions every time you visit a website? That depends on the cookies that are installed. So if you completely remove the cookies, expect to have to sign into the website, answer the security questions, and then sign into the website. So there's advantages and disadvantages. Now, another thing about cookies, for the most part, and we'll get into the exceptions here, but for the most part, cookies are browser specific, which means, and for me, I don't want to stay logged into a service like Google. I think Google collects too much information as it is. So the main browsers that I use for about everything, I don't allow Google to store all their cookies, and I don't sign into Google accounts on that. I just want to keep that separate. But I have a separate browser that I keep logged into YouTube, so I don't have to keep logging in every single time. But I never really use that browser for anything other than doing some YouTube stuff. So that's how you can manage that with still allowing some cookies, but without having to worry about logging in, logging out, or persistent data being carried over. Now, first-party and third-party cookies. A first-party cookie is when you go to a website and that website puts some cookie information on your computer. So that is certainly something that is fine and okay. I do not mind first-party cookies for the most part. Usually they're storing some form of useful data. Now, the third-party cookies are you go to a website and the advertising puts a cookie on your site, or something else that they're affiliated with puts a cookie on your site. That's a third-party cookie. Those, I highly recommend just disabling them. There's almost no purpose other than tracking you site to site and reporting home. Every time another site hits that thing, it'll just, oh, the machine ID sent it back out. All right. Now, there is a problem, and this is actually new to me as I started to do the research. I learned a few fun things doing this article. The first is the Flash cookie. Now, Adobe, among other people, in fact, it was among other people, and then finally Adobe embraced it, the death of Flash. Okay, so more and more people are calling for the end of Flash, and a lot of people are saying, let's stop using Flash so much, and I think that that is a great thing. Because one of the ways you allow these super cookies on your computer is by using Flash. Because if Flash is installed on the computer, Flash can gain access and store bigger, different cookies in a separate location, not related to the browser, and then those can be used cross-browser. So other cookies are not cross-browser. Flash cookies are. So if you are visiting a website and Flash is not enabled, do not enable it unless you know for certain that you need Flash on that website. And even then, be a little cautious. Now, starting, I want to say it might have already rolled out or starting very soon, both Firefox and Chrome are starting to block Flash by default everywhere. You have to manually allow it to turn on. As Flash is on, you know, I have some systems that may not be completely up to date, some older development systems, and if you go to a website on those computers and it'll say, hey, Flash is not turned on, let's go ahead and, you know, do you want to enable it or disable it? If you get that message, do not enable Flash unless you know it needs it. It's like, why is some site without Flash being loaded asking me to activate Flash? Well, the reason is they're probably storing a Flash cookie or a super cookie. Now, these gives rise to what is called a zombie cookie. The zombies are coming back from the dead. Okay, this is when you can delete the cookies, you open up your browser, and the cookies are back. It's because when you open the browser back up and Flash gets turned back on, it will reinstall a lot of these cookies. So we don't want to mess with those. All right, so our best cookie practices. First, generally you want to not accept third-party cookies. You need to decide for yourself based upon your internet usage, do you want cookies stored at all? Now, many websites in the modern day will not work properly if cookies are completely disabled, so you probably don't want to completely disable the cookies. But what you can do on most browsers is you can set the cookie to, first you can set some specific cookies. Why don't I go back up here? Firefox and Chrome. Both of those allow you to set very specific cookie management. For example, you can always block cookies from these people. You can always save cookies from these people. So you could actually set up your browser to delete all the cookies when you close the browser, except maybe cookies from these sites that you'd like to remain logged into. That is an option inside of Firefox and Chrome. If you're using Opera, Internet Explorer, or Safari, you don't have those options. But you do have the options when you're dealing with Chrome, Chromium, or Firefox. I'll throw Chrome/Chromium will operate on the same basis. All right. So as far as Flash cookies are concerned, there are, you can actually, if you can go to the application data folder where Flash stores its data, you can actually manually delete the cookies. But on a Windows computer, if you have CCleaner, that can actually remove the super cookies. On a Mac, and this is one I've never used, there's an app called Flush App or Flush.app, I forget which one it is. That is a system for Mac that's supposed to be like CCleaner. I've never used that one, I've just encountered it in my reading. BleachBit is for Linux. So I have used BleachBit, I have used CCleaner. And these systems will allow you to go in and remove the super cookies by clearing the cache related to Flash. So the super cookies are stored in the Flash player cache. So that's kind of what you want to do. Now, if you do use Firefox or you'd like a different way to manage those other than CCleaner, then you can actually use the Better Privacy plugin for Firefox, and that will actually allow you to delete or protect some of the super cookies that you may encounter. And even if you don't want to use Firefox as your main browser, you could have it installed, use that thing, and every couple weeks boot it up, double check the thing, and make sure your super cookies are cleaned out. So that's kind of how we do that. So what we're going to do here is we are going to go through the various different browsers, and we're going to look at the computer-based browsers, and we are going to have a brief discussion on mobile. All right, so we're going to start out with Firefox, and I've been itching to bite into this Firefox cookie all day, so yeah, don't mind me. All right, now I'm talking with my mouth full on YouTube, but man, is that a good cookie. All right, so what we're going to do here to just show you how to access the cookie management on Firefox. And this works the same on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So we're going to do this on Linux here. So clicking on your hamburger menu here in the upper right, we can come down to Preferences. Now on Windows, at least on my Windows computer, this says Settings. I'm not sure if that's due to the version of Firefox or if Windows just says Settings instead of Preferences. On Linux and on Mac, then it does say Preferences. And then we're going to come down here to Privacy on the menu on the left here. And then down here, and I've not changed any of these settings here, so we're going to do this now. So we have a few options under the history settings. So remember, history basically means we're going to allow all data to be saved. Now we have a never remember history, which requires you to restart Firefox, which we're not going to do. But the never remember history blocks all of the cookies from being able to be stored. I always prefer the use custom history settings because I can just have a lot more control here. So here, allow third-party cookies. Nope. I never really want to allow third-party cookies. Now, down here under keep cookies until, either you can close Firefox or they expire. I'm going to keep until they expire because this is one of my work computers that has, some data saved on it, and I'd prefer to not wipe everything out. And then we have, remember my browsing history and download history. Remember search and form history. And we can also select this option to clear history when Firefox closes. Now, under our exceptions over here, we can actually enter in a website and we can actually set the status as always block or always allow. And so this is what is going to be one of those features that allows us to keep cookies on and kind of customize and save our settings as we are deleting or not deleting our various cookies. So this just works. Just typing in, or I would usually just copy and paste if I know what it is. And then here you can hit block. So now it will always block cookies from google.com coming from an HTTPS. So if you do want to, you might want to block cookies just in case they're going to send one from a HTTP. And also, just keeping with good protocoling, the www versus non-www is actually a different form of the website. So if I want to successfully block Google, I might put all 4 of these in. 2 of them with the www, 2 of them without the www, being the HTTP or the HTTPS. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove all those because I don't care to block Google necessarily. Although you might want to. Over here you can show cookies. This will give you all the various cookies that that you are. You can see here I was actually using this without turning off the third-party cookies, and all these guys here are ad networks, probably blocking what I'm doing. Good thing I don't use this computer a whole lot as much, so we're going to go ahead and kill them all. Just hit the remove all button, close all the cookies out, reset my data. So that's kind of Firefox. Nice and easy. All the browsers are pretty easy. I think the only one that I had to scratch my head a little bit and look for a little bit further was Edge, but even that wasn't too difficult. All right, so we are going to move on next to Chrome/Chromium. Let's see how some Chrome tastes. Tastes like metal. All right. Now, if you don't know, Chromium is the open source version of Chrome. It's basically Chrome without all of Google's proprietary code in it. So I like the Firefox system better, so I always use Firefox. But if I do want to use a different browser, like what I use Chromium for, this is the only browser I have logged into Facebook. So Facebook does not cross-track all of my regular browsing data. And this is also the browser that I use when I'm interacting with YouTube. So I'm going to be more careful with this one here so I don't have to ruin any settings. So on Chrome/Chromium, come over here into the upper right, find the 3 vertical dots. This is kind of fun because Edge has 3 horizontal dots. Find the 3 vertical dots. We're going to come down to Settings. And then down here in Settings, we want to scroll all the way down to the bottom if you're not all on one screen. I'm on an HD screen here, so it's all on one screen. Hit the Show Advanced Settings, and then this is going to give you more options. And under Privacy, we want to click on the Content Settings. And this is what allows us to set all the data. So I'm going to go ahead and check the box here to block third-party cookies and site data. We are going to allow local data. This option basically makes everything into quasi-session data, deletes everything. This option here blocks cookies from setting in the first place. So I'm going to allow all the cookies except third parties. And I'm going to say done. There used to be an issue where settings in Chromium did not save. I'm thinking that issue was resolved by now. I think that was an old issue. But that's how easy it is in Chrome/Chromium. And now we're going to do Opera. And I'm not going to eat this cookie. I'm going to save that one for later. All right. So Opera is a little different. The Opera menu is in the upper left, not the upper right. We hit the main menu down here. We come down to Settings and Preferences. And then in this main pop-up screen here, we hit Advanced. And then we come down to the left and find Cookies. And here we can accept cookies. Now, when you see this, this is also the wording they use on Safari, accept cookies only from the sites I visit. This means we're only accepting first-party cookies, not third-party cookies. So we have our three options: accept all cookies, accept first-party, or never accept any cookies. We can hit our manage cookies here. This guy here must be a persistent cookie. It just keeps showing up. I have zombies on here. I got to run bleach bit, I think. All right. So to clear out all of your website data on Opera, you come down here, back to your settings, and then you hit the delete private data, and then you select which of these you would like to delete. And hit delete, and then you can do that. We can also manage our cookies from here. They're gone, of course, because I just killed them. So that, in a nutshell, is Opera. So I'll be back with the Safari and the Internet Explorer and the Edge. Okay, so here we are in a Safari web browser. So to access your cookie menu in Safari here, we want to get to Safari first. We come up here and click on the Safari and then come down to Preferences. And then we want to click on the Privacy tab. It's probably going to jump down to General for you by default. Come down to the Privacy tab, and then here you can select the ones that you'd like, either Always Block, Always Allow, Allow from websites I visit, and Allow from Current Website Only. So this Current Website Only is the one that blocks the third parties, and then you can remove all of your website data right over here. Okay, so here we are on Internet Explorer on Windows 10. Internet Explorer is still existent, and it is not Edge. That is a little bit of a misunderstanding by some people. The Windows is kind of locked into not destroying Internet Explorer for a while because a lot of enterprise applications still use the ActiveX control built into it. So if you are using Internet Explorer 11 and you do not have to be using it because of, if you don't have applications that specifically require it, you should probably use another browser. But for those that do need to use it and still want to disable the cookies, you come up here to the upper right, find the little gear, come down to Internet Options, and then here you want to go to Privacy on the tab here. Let me move it to the center screen, actually. And then here we want to click on Advanced. And then we can accept, block, or prompt first-party cookies, accept, block, or prompt third-party cookies, and always allow session cookies. So I like this setting best of all, actually, because I could block. This blocks anything persistent but allows the session cookies. So it's essentially kind of like storing the cookies until the web browser closes. In this case, what I'd probably do is just accept first party, block third party, and be done with it. To clear your, actually I think over here is where we'll see the site. So I can actually remove some or remove all cookies. And actually you can block or allow any given website. I'm sorry, this is not where you remove cookies. This is where you can manage your site. So I guess the Internet Explorer option does give you that same option like Chrome or Firefox does. Not that I would use Internet Explorer for that issue, but it is there. If you want to delete all of your browsing data, you can select this box here to delete browsing data history on exit, or over here you can just choose what you'd like to kill here. Actually, that's settings. I meant to hit delete there. Where you can select what you'd like to get rid of. Cookies and website data is the one that's going to get rid of the cookies, and then there's other information there as well. Okay, so that is Internet Explorer, and our last browser here is Edge. And I'm not connected to the internet, by the way. It's I actually disabled the wireless card on this computer, and I don't have a free Ethernet port. I had to run a wire out to extend internet. But on Edge, we want to go to the horizontal 3 dots here in the upper right corner. Click on this, come down to Settings. So down here, this is where you can clear all of your browser data. So you can clear all that there. And then scroll all the way down to the bottom, hit the View Advanced Settings, and then again all the way down to the bottom. This is all we have for cookies. Is we can don't block cookies, block all cookies, and block only third-party cookies. I did not see an option to clear browsing data when the browser closes. That seems to be contrary to what Microsoft would like to do anyway. It might be on here. If it is, hey, let me know. That'd be cool to know. I didn't investigate that further, mostly because I don't use Windows anymore. I do like this option here that we can turn off Flash Player, and I'm guessing that it did default this to turn off, so that's a nice thing. So we shouldn't be getting zombie cookies by using Edge, so that's a plus. All right, mobile cookies. I think I'm gonna have to do a tinfoil hat time on this topic, because what I'm noticing is less and less and less control over cookies as we go on. Now, I've not ran all of my system updates on the Android for a bit, so I'm not sure. I mean, you know, I'd update these things more if it were all about the security updates, but usually it's they want to give me more features, which usually means it's taking away stuff that I like. In other words, privacy, or the ability to turn off location data with the gallery and still be able to view pictures. Thank you, Android. But I will praise Android today, because both of the major browsers on Android had no problem setting up the cookie, the third-party cookies. So on Firefox, which is my preferred browser on the Android system, if you pull down the menu at the top, and then you come down to Settings down here. Let's see if I can get that up there. Down to Settings. And then on Settings, there is the Privacy tab. And then here in the Privacy tab, you can see the cookies. So here are our options, at least on this version of Firefox. So I can enable cookies excluding third-party, or I can completely disable them. So I'm going to set it to completely disable the third-party cookies. And then I can come down on the main screen here under the clear private data if I want to get rid of my search history. So that's on Firefox. On Chrome, on the Android, it's essentially the same process. You pull down the 3 dots in the corner, and then we come down to Settings. Once again, just hit the Settings there. And then with the Settings, we come down to, now this is the one that was slightly different from the computer. You hit the Site Settings. And then Cookies. This is actually kind of hard to do backwards. Okay. And then here we have the options. It gives us our cookies, turn on or turn off the cookies. And then we have a separate checkbox for allow third party. So I've allowed cookies, but I've turned off the third party cookies, is what I've done on my Android device. And I don't have Opera on this guy. Now I do have a, didn't grab it handy. I do have a little Dell tablet, like I think this is a 7 or 8 inch Dell tablet. And this is actually still running KitKat. It won't update any further than that. But both browsers, same thing. Coming down into Site Settings, Cookies, same settings. Turn on regular cookies and disable the site search. Now, that works on Android devices. I get onto my iPhone here, and I actually had to download Chrome. I am not a fan of Chrome, by the way. I do not use Chrome. But I downloaded the Chrome app. And if you go online, it tells you how to disable this. But this is, like I said, I just downloaded this today. So Presumably, this is the most up-to-date version of Chrome. The only potential exception is I will not run iOS 10. I think iOS 10 is about as invasive as Windows 10. So I've locked my iPhone to iOS 9, and I've blocked Apple from being able to deliver the updates. I just won't do iOS 10. So on here, if we go ahead and hit our bar to pull down the settings down here, and we hit settings down here at the bottom, and then it tells us, if you look at this online, it tells you to go to content settings, which is essentially where it is, and we should actually have another option in there for cookies. It is disabled. So I cannot apparently turn off cookies on the Chrome browser on the iPhone. So I looked at the same exact thing in Firefox, coming over here, pulling up my small menu here, and then going over into settings. There is absolutely nothing in here anywhere about cookies. So apparently, if I'm using any third-party web browser on the iOS device, apparently I cannot disable cookies. I checked this on this iPhone. I also have an iPad back here, which I think is on iOS 8, if I remember. And iOS 8, same deal. You can't on Firefox. You know what? I did not check Opera. I did not check Opera on the iPad. I'll leave a comment in that on the video to determine if I could do that. I totally forgot I have Opera on there. But what you could do is over here into your main settings. On your main settings, you want to scroll to just keep scrolling on your main settings until you find your Safari. So click on Safari. And then we want to scroll down to the block cookies part there. And then on block cookies, you have the same basic options you have on Safari. Always block, allow from current website only, allow from websites I visit, and always allow. So you have the options to do Safari. So I'm thinking that, Firefox on the iPhone also doesn't seem to support add-ons. So I'm thinking I'll just stick to Safari on the iPhone because, well, it works. But maybe that's an example of Apple neutering anybody that might be taking into some of their market share. I don't know. Like I said, I might need a hat for this discussion any further. Oh boy, oh boy. So I guess mobile browsing is getting a little crazier as far as web browsing privacy is concerned. I would probably suggest Android seems to be the better of the options now. If somebody has a Windows phone and can comment on that, I don't have a Windows phone in the office anymore. If there's anybody out there with a Windows phone watching that can tell me, can you disable the cookies on it? How easy is it? Whatever else, that would be kind of cool to know. In the meantime, this is Tom, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.